Thanks, Anthony. So we are going to cover that case live. We're waiting to go live in the courtroom. It should be noted that the judge today has already brought in the defendant and informed him of the fact that his defense attorneys have conceded the fact that he is the shooter. He understands that, and he is moving forward with that. So let's talk a little bit more about what his defense is. You heard a little bit about this Ambien defense. Let's see if that might work. Joining me right now is a very special guest. I haven't seen him in a very long time.
Been a while.
It has been a while. Criminal defense attorney Michel Bryant. Michael, it's great to have you back here.
Good to be here, Jesse.
So let's talk about that Ambien defense. It's, you know, I'm a lawyer. I don't just play one on TV. I get it. They're saying involuntary intoxication. That's a defense. What is that, and is it effective?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea under the circumstances. Let's face it. Voluntary intoxication has never worked, never will work. Let's take a step back into the law and crime classroom here and talk about the importance of either defense, whether it be involuntary or voluntary intoxication. You're trying to negate the element of intent. That's the goal.
You didn't mean to do it.
It's a diminished capacity type defense saying that, yeah, he did it but didn't have the mindset necessary to convict him of, in this case, first-degree murder. So, first of all, intoxication off the table. If you voluntarily intoxicate yourself, that's not going to do it.
Makes
the law
sense.
has made very clear you're not getting off the hook for being a bozo and getting too drunk or taking drugs.
Yep.
So, involuntary, what does that mean? Well, you did something that resulted in some consequence you never anticipated. In this case, allegedly Ambien, if taken as prescribed, would it have affected this gentleman as he says it did? Obviously, making him go off the rails and shoot his ex-wife and her best friend. So that's the key, proving that it was involuntary and that it truly did diminish his capacity and therefore get rid of the intent needed to find him guilty of murder.
Sounds like an uphill battle, if you ask me.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot to talk about in this case, and when we cover it, we're going to be live. We'll jump back into it because Ambien.
You don't like it. I can see you don't like it.
I don't love that defense. I've heard it happen before. We'll talk about it in a little bit. But before we get into any of the live stories and the live trials here today, guess what we have? We have the top crime stories of the day here on Law and Crime. Take a look. Thank you, Anthony. Great reporting as always. Go to lawandcrime.com to learn a little bit more of our top crime, legal, political, entertainment stories of the day. I want to talk about that restaurant punching, though. It's all in the news, and I want to talk about it here with Michel Bryant. So first thing I look at when I see that is the employee was prepared. She had her hand in there.
Yeah. Nice neighborhood, apparently.
I mean, look at this. This is pretty incredible. They said they had a problem with this guy before. But the first thing I think when people think this is, how'd they not get him? Like, how are they still? He's a regular of the restaurant. Right. They have him on surveillance. What's the problem getting him?
Bad police work? No, I mean, I don't know. You would think there's plenty of evidence to track this guy down. He's obviously got some local connection. He's there often enough. They're going to have to find somebody who rolls over on this guy. It's pretty clear that he's gone to ground, as they say, and you know they're going to have to just work their sources to find the guy.
Now, this is, I guess, is a conversation in the larger gun control debate. But having this gun prepared, you see it right there. She was ready for it. Is this an example that, you know, pro-gun activists are going to say, hey, look, this is a prime example, we have it on tape, about why it's so important to have the ability to carry a weapon?
But that's the argument that would be made, certainly. And then, of course, if this had ended differently, let's say the employee was caught in the crossfire and died, then you'd hear the other side saying, see, that's what happens when you allow guns in a more traditional non-gun setting.
But she didn't fire at him.
No, she did not.
What happens if she fired at him?
And hits him or misses him?
Hits him.
Well, it depends on whether somebody would believe she had some threat. Remember, you can defend yourself and you defend others. Is it reasonable force? Was it reasonable to fire at this guy?
Let's see that. That punch and then the taking out the weapon. Is that
okay? Now let's watch the sequence. There's the punch. He walks toward her. She pulls out the gun. He's advancing toward her when the gun comes out. If he had been retreating and she pulled out the gun, and then let's say she does fire and hits him, you know, wings him in the shoulder as he's going away from her, that's a problem.
What would have happened if she didn't have the gun on her?
Well, we don't know. I mean, the way he aggressively attacked that, I think he would have gone for round number 2 with the employee who had the gun. But no gun wouldn't have, he wouldn't have been stopped.
And I think this was about a bill or something. He was not happy with the payment.
I'm pretty sure.
We see so many crimes happening in restaurants. You know there's surveillance footage.
Of course, and I'm sure the underlying issue did not warrant anything that we just saw.
No, I can agree on that. I guess my question is, when you see this, is there a way to prevent this? Do you need armed security? We see security in jewelry stores and retail shops. But to have security in restaurants as opposed to having employees, how do you prevent this?
Yeah, too much. I mean, you know, are you going to go to the Waffle House if you got to go through a metal detector on the way in? I don't know. I think you can't be so reactive to one event like this. I think if this is a common thing where a customer goes off and ends up attacking an employee, then that business, that location's got to do something. You know, I think it's very location specific.
Right, and I think the restaurant is, I don't know, I think they knew that she was carrying a firearm. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's kind of probably a conversation that employers are going to have with their employees about the ability to carry a firearm in
Sure,
any kind of situation.
Is it legal? Is it smart? Yeah, those things should be handled in the business.
Absolutely. So there's always a lot to talk about with that case, and as soon as we have an update in it, maybe when they catch the guy, we'll let you know and talk more about it. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, hopefully we'll be in that new Florida courtroom, and if we're not, don't worry, because there is so much to talk about in the Leon Williams case out of Georgia. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Okay, so this is the prosecution's opening statement in the James Colley case, and we're learning from the prosecutor that he seemed to have been obsessed with his estranged wife and didn't like her entering into a new relationship. I'm here with attorney Michel Bryant. What do you think about the details leading up to this shooting so far?
Critical. I mean, critical stuff. She is laying the foundation for a troubled relationship, and ended horribly, obviously. But it's important to lay that foundation so it doesn't look like just some random act. This guy was about to blow, and it was building over time based, as you say, primarily on this new relationship.
This case is different in that you have eyewitnesses.
Witnesses and survivors. So the detail we're going to hear is going to be great.
Unbelievable. This is just the start of this case, folks. There's so much to cover, and again, as Michael and I talked about, we believe the defense is going to claim the Ambien defense, that he suffered from involuntary intoxication and then negated the intent, as Michael said so eloquently before, that basically this isn't his fault. Now, he is charged with multiple crimes, including first-degree murder, and it's going to be very interesting to watch. Now, I know we have to take a quick break, but we'll jump right back into that courtroom as soon as we get back, I promise you. So stay tuned. There's a lot more to cover out of this new case out of Florida. Stay tuned. Pretty interesting stuff in that prosecution's opening statement about the gunfire, the shooting that took place. Unbelievable. I'm here with attorney Michel Bryant. You know what we were talking about in the break is that Lamar, the person who had a romantic interest with Amanda, the victim, the estranged wife of the defendant, as soon as he ran away.
He did not hang around for the fireworks, literally. Now, it seems like as soon as the first shots were fired into that rear sliding door and the defendant yelled, "Where is he?" Lamar got a clue that he was the he, and he wasn't going to stick around for whatever Mr. Colley had in mind for him.
When we talk about premeditation and we're talking about first-degree murder, that's what she framed it out as.
Oh, yeah.
You know, she framed it out as he was planning this for a while and he was enraged.
Yes, this was a hunting, a stalking. It was not a snap-type decision. And remember, we have to think importantly about how that affects a case like this. You got a dead body, you got a shooter. That's true whether it's first-degree murder or negligent homicide. The difference is what steps happened in that defendant's mind to get to the killing. If it was I walked in on my wife fooling around with somebody, that's a snap. You know, that's a mitigated first-degree murder because you had no time to form that intent. But this was not that. This is a guy who knew about the ex-wife's boyfriend, knew where he was, and went after him.
That's exactly what it sounded like. And the defense is providing their opening statement. We're going to have to take a break in a minute, and then we'll jump back into that. But what I didn't hear, maybe you heard it, did you hear anything in the prosecution's opening statements about the defendant taking Ambien?
Not a word. Not a word.
And then remember, that's the defense's defense, which we believe is involuntary intoxication. Wasn't our client's fault. He was intoxicated by Ambien and went on the shooting rampage. I didn't hear anything about that.
Maybe she felt, I'm not even going to raise it. You know, sometimes those issues will be raised to diffuse them before the defense raises their own defense. She might have thought, let them deal with that. I'm not going to worry about it.
Seems like a smart strategy because it's up to them to come up with that defense,
sure.
Right? Absolutely. It's a sad case to follow, especially when you heard about how Amanda, according to the medical examiner who will testify, she was shot multiple times on the ground in a defensive position. This is not a good level of evidence for the defense there. That's not what you want to see. And we're going to have to hear more about what the defense will ultimately argue when we come back from this short break. So again, James Colley is on trial for the murder of his estranged wife. as well as her best friend in this shooting rampage that was really horrific. And when we're going to learn more about it, I know it's going to be tough to listen to, but it's important to listen to nonetheless. So we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Thank you, Anthony. Go to lawandcrime.com to learn about more of the top stories. It's really important. We cover the biggest stories of the day, so I recommend everyone go to lawandcrime.com. What else are you going to do? Don't you want to learn a little bit more about it? And I want to learn a little bit more about this case. We've seen it constantly on the news. I'm here with Michel Bryant. Sadly to say, I can't help but watch that video over and over. I think I'm in disbelief that that actually happened. But how many times do we see attacks in restaurants, retail shops, against employees? Why do we see this phenomenon?
What is the deal with the service industry? You know, people, they want eggs over easy. They aren't over easy, they lose it.
Apparently. Well, this might have been over money, but at the same point, I think I always question this. Don't you know that surveillance footage is there?
I don't think these folks are getting high IQ marks in the first place, all right? You know, they're just acting out. They're emotional. They're not thinking it through. They're not thinking, if there's not 5 people with cell phone video, there's probably surveillance video. No, they're just going off. That's their body and their mindset.
I agree, and I have to dissect this video from multiple parts. First of all, I can't believe she's standing after that punch.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Took a pretty good blow there, yeah.
And then she runs away. But this is what we talked about earlier, is that the woman that has the gun, the employee, she had her hand in her pocket and then took it out. She was prepared right when he walked in. And I know that they said that they had problems with this gentleman before. I'm curious, could this have been prevented?
Well, you know, the real question, too, is whether this coworker with the gun is armed as a result of either this guy or similar events in the past. If that's true, then I think the business has maybe a greater responsibility to kind of control the environment within the restaurant. Maybe the owner's like, hey, if the guy has money, let him in. I don't care what the problems might be. If he's paying his bill, fine. Well, kind of escalated.
Well, I don't know how good the business is at George Webb Restaurant, but
well, with that plug now,
yeah,
watch out. Try to get a lunch reservation now.
Well, as we continually show the fight in the background, yes. I don't think we're plugging it too well.
It's the daily special.
But I got to tell you, you watch this, and it raises the issue of gun rights in the country and gun control. If she didn't have a weapon on her, would this have been an entirely different story?
I mean, you get the sense, it sure looks like it. He's going after her. He's not punching one employee and then stepping back like I've done what I need to do. He is moving aggressively toward the second employee who pulls out the gun to slow him down. You notice, too, it isn't like he turns and runs. He's still giving her some attitude, even with the gun in his face.
I know.
So that leads me to think that, yeah, without the gun, she might have gone down, too.
But how do businesses move forward with this? Do they say, hey, listen, let's judge what our business is. Let's judge who our customers are. Maybe we have to arm our employees. I mean, again, we talked about it, how in jewelry stores and retail, there's security guards. Can't have security guards everywhere. We are having a conversation about whether security guards need to be at every school in the country, because every 5 seconds there's a shooting. But the question is, what do you do for businesses?
Yeah, I think in this case where this guy is apparently some sort of repeat disgruntled customer, you have to bar that kind of customer from coming in. You've got to keep that guy out, because in my mind, the owner has notice on this particular guy's attitude and history. He shouldn't be in the restaurant, period.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you take that and lay it over the whole business model and say, okay, we have to screen everybody, we have to profile people. I don't think you can do that.
No, you don't want to get into that.
In this particular case, this guy had a history, and he should never have been in that restaurant.
Well, he should never have been in that restaurant, and I'll tell you what, he should not be on the streets, because the police are actively looking for him, and hopefully they find him. I mean, you got surveillance footage. People knew him from the restaurant. Hopefully we'll have a conclusion to this case, and maybe we'll have it by the end of the day. We'll let you know. But we're going to switch gears right now. As you know, we were live in a great new case out of Florida. It's the James Colley case. This is one to watch. A man who is on trial for engaging in a brutal shooting that resulted in the death of his ex-wife as well as her best friend. You heard the details of it earlier today from the prosecution in their opening statement. But I'll tell you what, I was going to play the prosecution opening statement, but don't worry, we're back live in court right now, and I think I want to confirm it that the defense is continuing to give their opening statement. The judge is speaking to the defendant, so let's go live right now. Day one and there's already drama. So what just happened? Colley was asking the judge about his ability to object. He felt his attorneys didn't do a good enough job of objecting, and his attorney said, listen, if you want to represent yourself, you can object. But if you want us to do it, stand back. So, Michael, I'm listening to this. First of all, I'm sure you've had incidents or had issues where clients want to get more proactive.
No, never.
And more
never
involved.
happens. No.
What's going on here?
Well, I think there was a misunderstanding between Colley and his attorney and what was happening. Remember, they stipulated prior to the start of any process that it would be agreed that Colley was the shooter. There was not going to be any sort of dispute about that, and no evidence put on to dispute that he was the shooter. So when the prosecution was giving the opening statement, she said not only did forensic evidence point to him being the shooter, but witnesses were suggesting he was the shooter. Colley wanted that to be objected to because he said, no, the agreement was that there was forensic evidence that I'm the shooter, not that all witnesses pointed to me as the shooter. To Colley, that was a huge distinction. So the court had to step in and say, well, look, are you saying the attorney's not doing the job? Are you trying to represent yourself? Do you want a new attorney? The judge just wants to sort that stuff out.
I think he also had concerns that about the information coming forward that his wife was having an affair. That information wasn't objected to. Why would he care about that?
Let's face it, that's a sore subject with the defendant. So he, in some twisted way, decided that maybe that could be kept out of the trial. I don't know. That was his perception.
That's the whole prosecution's case.
Exactly. So, you know, Colley is he's a little edgy.
If you listen to the prosecution, he's very edgy.
He's edgy. Yes, he is.
Now, this is the question, though. Can you object to opening statements?
Of course, yeah. You know, it's not a great idea, in my opinion, unless the statement becomes argument. Remember, it's an opening statement. You're not allowed to make arguments, but all you have to really do is just say, as the evidence will show, and then you kind of make an argument. But you can object, unless it's off the rails. You really shouldn't, because then the jury gets mad at you.
Yeah.
What are you bugging this guy for? He's just trying to do his job. Come on, let him do it.
Day one. Day one. We're outlining the ways this case is working. We're excited to see where the defense will go. We talked about the idea that they're probably going to be arguing involuntary intoxication, that a client was on Ambien, couldn't control his actions, wasn't his fault. A lot to talk about in this case. So we will take a very quick break, and then we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Hi.
That is the prosecutor delivering a pretty fiery opening statement against the defendant and saying how he is responsible for the murder of his ex-wife and her best friend. Unfortunately, I have to say goodbye to Michel Bryant. I'm really upset about that. But don't worry, Michael. I will bring you back on to talk more about it. In the meantime, before we sign you off, last question that kind of bugs me, and we talked about it. This guy was divorced. The court said don't go near her. What's that about, and how did this happen?
You know, it happens all the time in a dissolution. The divorce, you know, you get a TRO as a matter of course. You know, it's kind of like you buy a burger, you get fries. Whether you want one or not, it's generally in place, and it's there to protect the parties. Well, this guy didn't seem to care. You know, he made many overtures to talk to her, to be with her, to berate her, and then of course that whole stealing the clothes and burning them on the lawn thing. You know, that's
never good.
That's what led to the hearing that was really the catalyst for these murders.
And you see this, and this is the reason why there's a TRO. I mean,
exactly.
Unfortunately, yes. Unbelievable. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. It was
Pleasure.
great having you on. We can't wait to have you back. All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, there's a lot more to discuss out of this new case out of Florida. We'll be right back.